recognize the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Balderson, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good to see you over there. Thank you all for being here today, and my questions will be directed predominantly to Dr. Corrigan-Curay. Thank you for being here. This committee has heard concerns that the FDA moves goalposts in regard to what is asked of sponsors during reviews. Do you believe that this has been an issue within the over-the-counter drug program as well?
I would say we don't try to move goalposts, but when we ask for a study, you can ask for a study to answer a question, and those are scientific studies. It is possible that the study doesn't yield the information that's necessary and we need additional information, but we do our best to only ask for the information that we need and to be least burdensome in our approach to the information we're asking to evaluate for safety and effectiveness.
Okay, thank you. Do you think the FDA can provide greater consistency and predictability moving forward?
That is always our goal, and we will take that, criticism that we may not be meeting that goal and try and implement greater consistency and predictability.
Okay. I'll follow up with you again also, Doctor. Congress has made clear its intent for the FDA to incorporate real-world evidence and new alternative testing methods during its review and approval processes. However, we've heard concerns that the agency has been slow to implement these tools. Can you explain how the FDA is currently using RWE and NAT and sunscreen evaluations, and what steps the FDA is taking to ensure that this aligns with both the letter and the spirit of congressional direction?
Thank you for that question. We certainly will rely on real-world evidence when it is appropriate and it can answer the question. In the area of sunscreens, it may seem somewhat counterintuitive that they're used all the time, and so there must be a lot of data in real-world data that we should be accessing and making our determinations. There's a couple things when you're trying to look for what we're saying causality. Does it cause some effect? You need to know what the exposure is. And unlike a prescription drug where we have in medical records exactly how much you took, when you took it, when we're talking about sunscreens, they can be used over many years. It's very difficult for people to quantify or remember which sunscreen, how long. And that can be a key issue that we need. But we'll continue to look at whatever data we can. In terms of the alternative methods, as I said, we're very excited about the roadmap. We're working hard to develop the science that we can reduce animal testing. We don't use skin irritation is no longer done with animals. Eye irritation is no longer done with animals. And we continue to look for other alternative methods, and we certainly will apply them to sunscreens.
Okay, thank you. Lastly, 5 years ago, Congress worked with the first Trump administration to enact the OTC Monograph Drug User Fee Act program. I know this was a critical step in modernizing the regulation of OTC products for the American people and taking key steps to empower consumers with more choices in meeting their healthcare needs. A key goal of enacting OMUFA was to improve the regulatory certainty around FDA's OTC work. But as Congress assesses what has worked well in the first 5 years of this program and where we have opportunities to improve it with this year's reauthorization, what suggestions do you have for how there can be more transparency with sponsors to further improve regulatory certainty when it comes to these products?
Thank you. We certainly have learned from OMUFA 1, and that's reflected in OMUFA 2. We are going to provide more guidance or education on the GRACE standard, but we're first going to seek clarity from sponsors in terms of what are the questions they have. We know we need to provide more guidance on when you're bringing in a proposed order for a new active ingredient, more guidance on how we treat confidential data. Also on exclusivity, we're going to do transparency on exclusivity, transparency on fees, who's paying fees and who is not paying fees. We're going to continue to provide guidance in areas that industry needs to understand that predictability and what our expectations are.
Okay. Thank you very much. And Mr. Chairman, I yield back.